Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
Hey guys, just wanted to offer you a free gift here as a part of being a listener of my show. If you go to kfmfree.com, you can get the top 30 books and top 30 success quotes that every man must live by. So obviously every show we talk about books and we talk about success quotes. And so I've compiled the best of the best out of the last 100 episodes into a short guide. So kfmfree.com and it's all yours. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Jeff Spadafora. He's the Director of Global Coaching Services and Product Development for the Halftime Institute. He's coached over 100 men and women through the halftime journey, and he spent 20 years as a leadership and executive development consultant for Fortune 1000 companies. All right, Jeff, happy to have you here on the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Andrew.
All right. Well, as you know, we start off every show with a favorite success quote or some sort of saying that the guest has lived by. So share with us what you got and what that means to you.
Well, I read this quote back in 2005, and it says, it's by Henry Van Dyke, and it says, as long as habit and routine dictate the pattern of your life, the full potential of your soul will never emerge. As long as habit and routine dictate the pattern of your life, the full potential of your soul will never emerge. And I just read that and just realized, you know what? If I want my life to change, I'm going to have to change my life. And it may be uncomfortable, but it's time to get on with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it seems like that could go for good or for bad. You could have good habits and routines, or you could have bad habits and routines, and that can throw you in the direction that dictated by your routines and habits.
That's a great point, because there are certain habits and disciplines that can serve you well. And there were, for most of my habits and disciplines were good. It just wasn't living up to the full potential of who I could be.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm interested in how you got started with the Halftime Institute and what kind of was your aha moments in getting started in the career that you do now. So let's take a few steps back and walk us through how you got started with what you do.
Well, you know, I was born and raised in Western Massachusetts, so I'm a New England guy, and I just kind of grew up in an environment where I just thought that the key to life was make as much money as fast as you can. You know, not that that's bad, and not that that's good, but it was just kind of myopic, and so I came out of college and just started going for it, and I got involved in leadership development and management consulting, and my career just started to take off. Started to make money, met a lovely woman, got married, had 3 kids. We moved to Colorado, which was a dream come true. And from the outside looking in, I should be the happiest guy in the world, right? But inside me, even during the good years of building my career in consulting, I had this feeling, and the best way I can describe it is smoldering discontent. It was just this kind of subtle, low-grade sort of discontent. Like, why is this not what I thought it was going to be? And I was fly fishing with a friend of mine. I live in Colorado. We were up in the mountains of Colorado fly fishing, and I told him about this, just what was going on in my life. And he said, man, you're in halftime. And I had no idea what he was talking about. But when we got out of the river, he had the book Halftime in his truck. And I read that book, and it just gave me hope and a vision for what a future could look like. I was 40 years old at the time, had 3 little kids. I was really in my peak earning years, and it was going to be a gut check around what I was going to do with my life. I went to call Bob Buford, the author, just to say, hey, thanks for writing the book. And I found out that he wrote that book in 95, and the phone had been ringing off the hook ever since. And he started a nonprofit to help people sort through really what's their life purpose in the second half of life. And so I went through that experience. I worked with a coach, and I popped out on the other side, and I just realized, you know what? I think my calling is to help people figure out their calling. And so I joined on with the team, and I've been with them for the last 10 years now.
Yeah. Yeah. So the book is called The Halftime From Success to Significance.
Yep, absolutely. This is the 20th year. Bob wrote it in 95, and it's called Halftime with the subtitle Success to Significance.
Yeah. Yeah. Peter Drucker says it's an insightful book that will help you build a rich and meaningful second half, and over 150,000 copies sold of this book. So I read a ton of books. Like I told you before we started the show, I'm like, I got a library of books behind me, I read a ton. Yeah. And I haven't come across this book. I haven't heard anyone mention this book to me. And I'm just kind of like, whoa, where'd this come from? It's very rare that I haven't heard of a book or even an author. So I am clueless to what this book is. And I'd be honored if you could walk us through what this book is and how it helps people. What exactly is the halftime, and how do they get out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the book's actually sold 800,000 copies now.
I'm looking at an old thing here then. Okay.
But it's interesting because Bob was a cable TV guy in the early days, and his business was just growing like crazy. And it was growing so fast that he just really needed help on how do you manage an enterprise of that size. And so one of his favorite management consultants was Peter Drucker. And so Bob did kind of an ostentatious thing. He picked up the phone and called Peter and said, would you help me? And Peter was a professor, and, he'd written several books on management, was really the father of modern day management, and really, in many respects, sort of one of the greatest social observers of America. And Peter said, yeah, I will help you. And so they struck up what started out as a business relationship and became really a friendship. And over time, as Bob's business started to stabilize and grow, he started to dream about what else could I be doing with my life? Because while business was great, it was getting a little bit stale. And Bob had something happen to him that was a bit of a wake-up call. His 24-year-old son, his only child, died. And when you have something like that happen, it gets you to think about your mortality. And so as Bob started to wrestle with, is there something in addition to or instead of my business, he started to dream about some different things he could do with his life. And for him, Bob was a Christian, and he wanted to help bring management practices to churches, to unleash the potential energy that's just sitting in the pews, and to do that across America. And that's what he sunk his teeth into. And Peter Drucker said, you got to write that story down, because there are tons and tons of people, baby boomers, that are going to be reaching age 50 to 60 in the next 30 to 40 years, and they're going to have options in front of them. And what Peter said is the American adult male is overprepared for life one and underprepared for life two. And there's no university for the second half of life. And so you need to write down your story and give some tips and strategies to help people figure out what to do with their second half of life. And so that's really the history of the book. Now, it hit me pretty early. It hit me at age 40. And we had just somebody come through the Halftime Institute a month ago that was age 76. So we say it's not necessarily about age, it's more about availability. Are you ready to make yourself available to go make a positive difference in the world? And it's not so much about your age or even your gender. We've had in the last 10 years, we've had a a big increase in women who reached this point in time was saying there's got to be more than this. So that's a little bit of the background.
Yeah, good background. And I'm interested in, what does it mean to go from success to significance?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's a question that if you had asked me when I was 20 or even 30 about what would bring me the greatest joy, I would have said, a successful business, a happy marriage, lots of money, cool stuff, great vacations, good friends. And my real focus in terms of if you analyzed my calendar would have been on the success and the money and the stuff. And I was trying to manage all the other stuff on the edges. And what happens eventually, and I know this is hard for people to believe, but there comes a point in time for just about every person where the pursuit of just success in and of itself starts to get stale. And you start to wonder, is there something more than success, something in addition to success? And the concept of significance is to move from being self-centered to others-centric, to realize that some of our greatest joy and our greatest fulfillment is to figure out our unique gifting, what we're passionate about, and then go pursue that in a way that makes a positive difference in people's lives, no matter what it costs you to go do it. And so many people are wrapped up in sort of the mantras of Wall Street and Madison Avenue and Hollywood, that they think the key is success and materialism and consumerism. And when that light switch gets flipped in a guy's heart and they realize that that's a hollow bill of goods and they're ready to make a difference in the world, that's when you shift from success to significance.
Yeah. So it seems like a really big turning point for a lot of guys and women. But when we're doing something, we set out goals. It's kind of like the 20s and 30s. You set these goals and you're really just grinding. Like you said in your story, like you thought success was about making lots of money and reaching that level of success for yourself. But going into significance is like, what I'm getting is like, beginning to look outward, or like looking out to share your gifts more with the world.
That's exactly it. And there's two types of people in the world. There's givers and there's takers. And most men early in their lives are takers, because a lot of the role models and a lot of the scripting on what it means to be a man means to accumulate, to get stuff, to take stuff. And over time, and it's just a matter of wisdom and experience and maturity, where you start to realize that that's not bringing me the joy I thought. And you start to realize that giving yourself away, your money, your time, your talent, the best you, is where the greatest joy leads to. And I just remember at age 40 just saying, if I poured all of my creativity that I've been pouring into my business all of these years, I bet you I could really make a positive difference in some people's lives. I didn't know whose, but I just had a feeling that was the case. And I remember something happening in 2004. I took my family down to Disney World, and I brought my mom and dad with us, and we were walking through the Magic Kingdom, and it was kind of right in front of the castle area. And we ran into a family that was from our hometown in Western Massachusetts. And so I had my family and then this guy and all of his extended family. And this guy was about 6 to maybe 8 years older than me. And I remember him really well because he played football for my dad. My dad was a high school football coach for 36 years. And so in the midst of us all kind of laughing and connecting and, oh, we're so surprised to see you, how great is this? Somehow I ended up standing shoulder to shoulder with this guy. And he had gone on to be quite a successful person. And he said to me, he said, Jeff, there's hardly a week that goes by where I don't call on something that I learned from your dad on the football field or in the classroom. He's just made an immeasurable impact on my life. And I had, Andrew, just these two massive emotions that just surged up inside of me. The first one was just pride. I was just so proud of my dad, who, never made more than 50 grand his whole year. He just poured his life into these kids, and football was just the excuse to help these kids. And he did it for, 36 years. And so I was just proud of him. The second emotion, it was like a dagger to my heart. And it was just like, if you keep on this pace, you're going to be rich. And your wife and your kids may like you, but beyond that, what kind of difference are you going to really make in the world? And that was just a massive wake-up call for me.
Seems like a big kind of slap in the face, like, wow, like what am I going to do with the rest of my life, and how am I going to make that impact? So been coaching and helping people find their calling. What does a typical client look like when he comes up to you? And then what's the process that you take them through to help them understand and go after that calling?
Yeah, it's a good question. Most of the people that come to us, and this percentage is actually decreasing, but most of it is somebody said, a friend gave me the book. But with some more marketing that we've been doing, we're getting people from other marketing initiatives. But most people said, a friend gave me the book, I read it, that's me. And I need help. And I've either reached the pinnacles of success and it's been empty, or I've been pursuing it and maybe it crashed. Either my health crashed, or I went bankrupt, or 2008, 2009 market downturn happens, and I'm left with a choice. I can either, if things have gone well for me, I can spend the rest of my life sailing and golfing. And there's a certain amount of that, it's appealing, but I don't know if I could do it 7 days a week. If things have gone poorly and I've had some sort of a crash, do I really want to take say this is a 50-year-old man, do I really want to take the next 25 years of productivity that I most likely have and spend that on building up my pile of money again? Or should I spend that energy and my creativity elsewhere? And so that's kind of the posture of heart that somebody comes to us with. And so what we really take them through is sort of three different areas. If you can picture a Venn diagram, if you know what that is, sort of three circles where they overlap in the middle. We talk about discovering your calling and your life purpose as getting those three things to line up. And those three different areas are core, capacity, and context. So the core is, who am I at the core? Who have I really been designed to be? And then what am I good at? And also, what are my blind spots? What am I not good at? And what are some of my limited thinking patterns, or what are some of my false beliefs? But really to understand who I am and to identify a cause or an issue that I could get fired up about and go make a difference on. The next is around capacity. How much time do I have to work with here? Am I still working and I can carve out 2 days a week to this, or am I fully retired? Or, what does that look like in terms of the time commitment that I can dedicate to pursuing what my real calling is and then getting engaged in it? The other piece around capacity is around money. It's just, where do I stand? How much do I need to make? What are my targets for saving? And then how can I get in sync with my spouse if I'm married on this? And then maybe even thinking, how much can I invest in something or donate in a philanthropic mode? The third piece around capacity is actually a spiritual piece. Most people, when they get to halftime, they tend to bump into the question of, who is God? This is a question that sometimes people don't pay attention to when they're younger in life, but later in life, you start to wonder, at least I know for me, it's like, that's a pretty big question to just have an opinion about. And so it's to tap into some spiritual overflow. So in that capacity area, we have time, money, and spiritual overflow. And then the third area is context. If I know what I'm good at and care about, and I know what I've got to work with, where do I live this life out? Do I do it in my current business? Is there possibility? We have a lot of people, Andrew, that realize, you know what? The best place for me to make a biggest difference in the world and to experience the greatest joy is actually right where I'm at. I just need to reimagine my role in this organization. Other people say, this ain't the right platform. Time to move on. I'm going to go find somebody else that's working on something I care about and join in. Or the third option in the context area is to say, I'll just go start my own deal. I'll start a company, I'll start a nonprofit, whatever it is. And so what we do over the course of a year is we help people build that self-knowledge in their core, get a real clear assessment of their capacity, and then help connect them into a new context for this next season of their life.
It sounds like a really powerful process. And in this process, where do you feel like people get caught up the most, or they're struggling the most and find it difficult to move to that next stage?
It's busyness. Busyness. I've heard it said that BUSY stands for burdened under Satan's yoke. He just does not want us to carve the time out to think intentionally and virtuously about how we can go live. And so people get sucked into lots and lots of good stuff. But if you can't carve out some space in your calendar to get strategic about your life, you're always going to be stuck. And I ask a lot of half-timers that come through, I'll just say, how often do you do strategic planning meetings for your company? And they'll be like, well, we do every Tuesday morning for 2 hours, then we do a monthly half day, and then quarterly we do a full day, and then we do an annual 4-day retreat. And it's like, okay, when was the last time you took a strategic planning day for yourself? And they don't even know how to respond to that. And we all know the answer is, I can't remember if I've ever done it.
Right.
And so the big thing is, this is not a decision. This is a journey of exploration. And it kind of goes back to the quote that I opened up with in the beginning, is that if I can't break out of the habits and routines and create some margin in my calendar to explore alternative ways to live, I'm just always going to be stuck here. And so many people expect to just get an epiphany, just like, boom, oh, I know what I should do. I read an article and now I'm going to go do it. It just doesn't happen that way. It's usually through disciplined, courageous, intentional decisions spread out over a period of time. And so that's the key thing is busyness is probably, to answer your question, is the number one thing. Number two issue is just the gravitational pull of comfort. There's just, when people get into the status quo, they sometimes they'll get frustrated with it, and they'll get some smoldering discontent, and it'll flare up, and they'll say, by golly, I'm going to do something about it. But then as they lean into the hard work of it, all of a sudden, looking back on the status quo doesn't look so bad. It's actually kind of comfortable. And that's just passivity and laziness, rearing its ugly head. This is hard work. It's hard work to figure this stuff out, and it takes significant amounts of courage and discipline to do it.
Yeah. This is going really well. And in the second half, I'm looking here now at the book on Amazon. You talk about life mission.
Mm-hmm.
What does it look like when someone doesn't have a life mission? And what does it look like when someone does have a life mission? When you've helped someone come in who did not have it, and then at the end of that coaching, they had it?
Yeah. There's a couple of things. The ones that don't have it, it's interesting. They can almost be deluded into thinking they do have it. So, for instance, I ask audiences all over the world, I'll just say, on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate the quality of your life? So raise your hand if you're a 1. Nobody really raises their hand. Raise your hand if you're a 2. Well, some people raise their hand as a 2. How many are 3? A lot of people say, yeah, quality of life, I'd say 3 on a scale of 1 to 5. Then you get a lot of 4s. Not many people raise their hand on 5 because nobody likes a bragger. And then I'll say to them, well, how would you feel if the scale actually went to 20 and you're living at a level 4 quality of life? And so my point there to your question is that there are some people who are not on mission, who are just kind of comfortable, kind of sleeping through life, and really kind of living, in many respects, the leisure myth that Wall Street perpetuates when it comes to retirement, that you just kind of chill and relax. And they think they have it good, but they don't know that there's a whole nother level of energy and enthusiasm and new relationships and impact that they could make in the world. And so the person who doesn't have a mission, they may not actually be in much pain. They may not have much existential angst. They're just kind of floating through life, just everything's kind of fine, but it's actually a suboptimized life. A person who is on mission has a high degree of conviction that the reason that God put them on this planet is something that they're actually living out right now. And that they're doing that in a way where their health is in balance, their marriages are strong, their parenting is solid, their finances are solid, and they wake up with just a conviction that I know my direction. I just know it deep in my bones that this is what I was born to do. It's like I love to hunt, and I've got a bird dog. I hunt grouse and pheasant with him. And when I go out there, I watch him in amazement and just realize I did very little training with this dog. All I had to do was control him so that he wouldn't run away. I didn't have to teach him to find a bird or to point a bird. And when I just watch him, it's like it almost brings tears to my eyes. It's like he is doing what he was put on this planet to do. And somebody who goes through the Halftime Institute will pop out on the other side with that same level of conviction.
Wow. It's a good analogy to kind of look at when you put, if you were to keep that dog in the garage, just sit there and look bored, not, well, I mean, depending on the dog, right? It would just sit there and just lay around, wouldn't do too much. It would just kind of run around the backyard, do its thing. But when you put that dog in a position where it can thrive, where it was, you said, it was born to do this, the dog is probably running out, it's having fun, it's moving, it's wagging its tail, it's really living life. And, so I really like that analogy. When you put the dog in the right environment, it does what it needs to do.
Well, and that's a big part of what we do at Halftime is, first, if we can help a person create margin in their calendar, then we can put them in environments to get exposure to what else is going on in the world. And this is the big thing, particularly for business guys, is that, and this was the case in my life, whatever success I had in my consulting business, it was largely due to a maniacal focus on the business. Just do not get distracted. Set the goal, execute. Any other questions? Well, you do that for 20, 30, 40 years, the world starts to get really small. And you don't even know there's other stuff going on. I mean, when I got to Halftime at age 40, I had no other passions. I thought the whole world revolved around, leadership development consulting for the Fortune 500. And I was living with blinders and myopically. And the big part of what we do is try to get people diverse exposure to see what's really going on in the world. One simple exercise is just pick up an international newspaper every day for the next 7 days. Grab a New York Times or a London Times or even USA Today. Pick it up every day, 7 days in a row, and just flip through it. And don't try to read it and don't try to, assimilate all the data, but just go with your gut and just say, what makes me mad? What makes me sad? What makes me glad? As I just look at what's going on in the world. And just do that for 7 days and just check your spirit, check your heart. What is it that gets me a little bit fired up? And it's just that kind of exposure. That's just one simple experiment. I did that with a guy. It was so funny. He came back to me for our next coaching session, and he said, I did that exercise. It was the dumbest thing in the world. He says, because I realized I'm just a cold-hearted guy. Nothing got me excited. And he said, about the only thing I learned from that stupid exercise is I can't live without the sports section. And I said, Rick, you like sports? And he says, yeah, I know, but it's just kind of selfish and it's a hobby. And it's like, I said, do you know what kind of good happens in the world through sport? Do you know how many kids' lives are changed or how many causes are advanced through sports? And he was like, yeah, no, I guess I never thought about that. So for him, it was kind of hidden in plain sight. And then he started to lean into it. And so this getting the dog out of the garage and into the field, I mean, that's kind of what we're trying to do at halftime. And what we find is really discovering your heart. It's a balance of this exploration, but then there's also some introspection to really sort of assess myself, engage myself. What am I good at? What do I care about? What am I not so good at? Three questions that I'll ask people that can oftentimes lead to a really big breakthrough on how they think about life is one, what do you know about your life that you're pretending not to know? And then, what are you most afraid of? And what are you most ashamed of? And I tell you, if you grab a clean sheet of paper and go sit under a tree for a half hour and really ruminate on those things, you're going to learn a lot about yourself. And you're going to learn a lot about the pathway that you might need to free yourself from that and start breaking through to what you're really designed to do.
Yeah, it's like when we find out what it is that we're designed to do, it seems like nothing else matters and that we really come alive. And, alive is Latin for, it's like to breathe life into. Mm-hmm. And the word alive is just so powerful. And I'm looking back at all these books behind me, like biographies, and a lot of a theme that I find in these biographies is that, of great leaders and entrepreneurs and people in this world is that growing up, they were in the wrong environments and they were not thriving. They were studying the wrong thing. They were in the wrong job, in the wrong relationship. But when they put themselves in the right place, it allowed them to really prosper. It allowed them to, like, nothing else mattered. It allowed them to really focus on that one thing and really start seeing some of that success.
Well, absolutely. And, you mentioned in our pre-interview that you started out early in the corporate rat race, and then you bailed from that. And I didn't do that. And, I learned a lot because people draw a lot of analogies from sports. And quite frankly, it's sports about how great sports is and how it translates to life. And I think now in retrospect, a lot of it's bunk. I grew up an athlete. My dad coached football. My brother and I both played college football. And quite frankly, what I found is that hard work and determination and perseverance overdone doesn't serve you well. And I just refused to quit. And I just kept leaning into the corporate consulting game. And by golly, I got good at it. But all of that smoldering discontent was just that still soft whisper saying, dude, you're in the wrong spot. But I just I couldn't deal with quitting. And it was a big mistake. I should have pulled the ripcord much earlier and opened up my eyes. And it actually takes more courage, to quit than it does to stick in and grind it out. And I didn't have that until ultimately, the pain and the emptiness of success was just too much, and it was time to rethink.
Yeah, there's something about quitting where, I feel like as men, it's like failure.
Yeah.
If we stop what we're doing, then, oh, I failed at that. And it's like, we don't want to fail at anything in our lives. We want to be successful and then move on, maybe.
Yeah. It really is to reorient your brain to seeing failure as a cycle of learning. And the biggest thing that causes people not to quit is fear of what other people are going to think about them. And as soon as you can get to the point where, look, the only people I'm truly responsible to is my creator and my spouse and my kids. And I could care less what the rest of the world thinks. If you can truly get to that place in your mind and in your heart, that's the front edge of freedom, where if you're married, you can start to dream together with your wife. If you're not, you got this clean slate around what you can go do. But so many people are held trapped by sort of success norms and concerns about what other people are going to think of them.
Yeah, it's like that fear of looking stupid, fear of the opinions of other people, really just drowning out our own inner thoughts of what we really want to do. Yeah. I'm really enjoying this interview. Would like to take it deeper now and go into what I call the knowledge round. Just going to ask you some rapid fire questions here to bring out more nuggets of wisdom for the audience. So, Jeff, are you ready for the knowledge round?
Let's do it.
All right. All right, guys. If you're not reading books, then you're getting left behind. Somebody spent their entire life learning some invaluable lesson. And the best format that anyone could ever put it in is a book. It's the shortest, fastest, simplest way to consume content. So I know there are so many books available, and we talk about books all the time on the podcast. So there must be so many running through your head, and you're wondering, where do I begin? Well, I've compiled the top 30 books and success quotes from all of my guests in the last 100 episodes. So you can get them all for free. If you go to kfmfree.com, you can simply download the top 30 books that every man must live by. Again, that's kfmfree.com. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime. First question I have is, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling really lost and unsure of what they're doing, of what they should be doing? Which is so much of this whole episode, but yeah. It is a question I have here.
Yeah. I think, I think go back to those 3 C's yourself and just go through it and say, what am I good at in the core? What am I passionate about? What am I not good at? What am I afraid of? And just journal on that. Go to the capacity thing and look at the 3 elements there. How much time do I have? What's my realistic financial situation? And the key there is realistic, separating your wants from your needs. There's a lot of people that get trapped in positions because of the monthly nut. And so really understand what are your wants and your needs. And then the third piece is that spiritual overflow. Get to the bottom of that. You can't float through life wondering if God is real. And if he is, what is my relationship to him? So I would really encourage people to get to the bottom of that. And I think if you do those first 2 things, those first 2 C's, the third C, the context of where you live it out, will start to manifest itself.
Yeah, really good. And Jeff, what was holding you back from becoming the man you are now today? Fear of, really it was financial fear, and just fear that, if I really, one of the big things is I would have these dreams about what I would want to do, and I couldn't instantly see how to monetize it to maintain my current lifestyle. And so I would think of the dream and then see the lack of financial potential
And within 3 seconds, I would discount it and move on to something else because it was too painful to deal with. And so the big thing for me was the fear of the financial implications and not giving myself permission to dream. I wasn't going to necessarily quit immediately, but in my brain, I thought I was quitting immediately. And so I would stop the dreaming. My encouragement is don't quit. Just carve out some time to dream and explore and investigate and talk to people that are doing the things that you're interested in and learn about it in parallel to your current workplace. It's like Bob Buford always says, it's Tarzan's rule of the jungle. Don't let go of one vine until you have another vine firmly in grasp. So that was just allow yourself to dream and don't think that you have to do some big crazy bet the farm decision in one split second.
Yeah. And what would you say are two or three of your most influential books, and why?
Well, clearly for me, the Bible. I walked away from the faith for 25 years. And then when I got to the end of my rope, I realized, you know what? Some other people have probably figured this thing out. maybe I should go to some source of wisdom. And it's last 15 years, it's just proven to be true. Another book that's been really impactful for me is Wild at Heart by John Eldredge. Just a powerful understanding of what a man's heart truly craves and how what he craves is often contrary to what modern day media and entertainment tell us we should crave. So that's a real powerful book. Let me look back on my bookshelf here. It sounds a little trite, but I would have to say Halftime. That was a significant catalyst where John Eldredge stirred up my heart. Bob Buford gave me a game plan, and then the Bible gave me a stronger foundation to live it all out. So those would be my top three.
Yeah, really good. I love asking guys the books they've read. It's and what's interesting is like you're talking about these books and they've had such a huge catalyst for change in your life, but the total investment for those books is like under $30.
Yeah,
and I find that just so interesting. It's like we can read these books and they can completely change our thinking. It can change, or it can at least start a fire and put us into some new direction or some new way of thinking.
Well, it's what Ken Blanchard, who wrote The 1 Minute Manager, said. It's the knowing doing gap, and that's the big gap that ultimately near the end of a person's experience at the Halftime Institute is bridging the knowing doing gap. When they walk in the door, they don't know. As the process goes on, they start to know what they're supposed to do. And now it's how do you bridge the gap? And the way we phrase it is, okay, you've got your assignment. Now, how do you get your life in alignment with the assignment? And that's so books are great, but pushing through to action is the key.
Yeah, got it. And so, Jeff, this next one is more of a scenario. So if you had 60 seconds with 20-year-old Jeff, you got to talk to him, what would you tell him to do, and what would you tell him not to do?
Yeah. 20-year-old Jeff. I would say, and again, this sounds kind of cliche-ish, but I'd say two things. Trust your heart and read the Gospels and do what it says. That's what I would have told myself back then. Now I would have chuckled and said, "Hey, thanks, old man, for those really wonderful pearls of wisdom. It's just so nice to meet you. Thank you for all of your great input." But I would have just laughed at it. But that's what I would say now.
Yeah. And anything you tell them not to do?
yeah, don't buy into the lies of Wall Street, Hollywood, and Madison Avenue. That stuff can be good, but if it's made an idol and it's your end game, it's going to be hollow. The real victories come in the relationships, just good friendships, a healthy marriage, kids that you love, and kids that love you and respect you and are flourishing. The victories are in the relationships, not in the stuff, and not in the titles, and not in the badges and the trophies.
Yeah, really.
But again, I can tell you right now, Andrew, seeing your demographics, probably half of the people listening right now are just like, this guy's a lunatic. But the other half have gotten to the point where it's like, I do finally get it. And it's just a matter of time until somebody arrives at that conclusion. And man, it's just a breath of fresh air and a whole new aperture of freedom when you get there.
Yeah. I would say that a lot of my audience is really like in agreeing with what you're having to say here. It's
nice.
It's very much in line. I mean, it's leading us, us men to more happiness and fulfillment in our lives, which is at the end of the day, I think, we're really seeking those things.
Oh, that's exciting. Then keep up what you're doing, man. That's the direction you're leading them. Keep it up.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, even Jeff, if you have to summarize some of your main points, it's perfectly okay. But what would you say is your philosophy on life and success?
Well, I would say there's a bigger plan at work than my little plan. And my objective is to figure out what's that big plan. And I think that big plan is love and restoration and compassion. And it's just figuring out my role in that.
Well, really, really good philosophy there. And, I'm interested too in what's exciting you now. Like what's the future going to look like for yourself?
Yeah. Well, what's exciting me now is that we feel there are just untold numbers of half-timers that are stuck, and they don't even know that we exist as a nonprofit here to help them get unstuck. And we now have 35 coaches in 6 countries around the world. And I just feel like we're starting to get some traction in reaching and serving those people. Yeah. Continue on. And also for yourself, like what is it? What's getting you out of bed in the morning? Yeah, so that's as just our team here at the Halftime Institute. That's what's exciting. The other thing is I've written a book on joy that Thomas Nelson is publishing. And that'll be coming out in 2016. And, just 10 years of helping, a couple hundred people figure out their calling. I've started to see some patterns that lead to joy. And I've been able to put it in a book and have it get picked up by a publisher. So I'm really excited about that and what that might do in people's lives.
Right, Jeff. Yeah, I'm excited for that. And let's stay in touch on when that book comes into fruition. And I'd love to support you with that. Go ahead and give yourself a plug on how the audience can connect with you and follow up.
Yeah, real simple. Go to halftime.org. And we have 3 basic year-long programs that you can sign up for, all based off of that 3 C's model of core, capacity, and context. And if it looks like it's even remotely of interest, give us a shout. We can set you up with an opportunity to chat with one of our coaches and just make sure the program's right for you.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and 1 million downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement, and we've just started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a review in iTunes. It really helps to grow the podcast. Guys, 2015 is the official year of living with purpose, where every day you do only the things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. Check out kfmfree.com to get free tools I've created to help you crush life. Again, that's kfmfree.com. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, and I'll see you in the next episode.